Does lion's mane actually work? I mean, there is so much talk about lion's mane. Lion's mane is clearly trending. I'm seeing it everywhere on social media. I used to be, and still kind of am, a massive fan of it. More of that later. One thing I do definitely want to talk about today is my personal experience with it. But again, more on that later. The claims being made around lion's mane are kind of endless. You have improved cognition, pretty vague term, but they like to say cognition in regard to short-term memory, long-term memory, intelligence, performance, focus. The list goes on. People that take it anecdotally report a variety of different benefits. Some of the ones I've just mentioned, including other ones like reducing depression, better mood. You get the idea, brain health, okay? It's a brain health supplement, otherwise known as a nootropic. But the question I think we need to be asking ourselves is, does the stuff actually work in the same way that it's marketed? Because I'm skeptical. Because really the main tested mechanisms surrounding lion's mane surround two different functions, neurotrophy and neuroprotection. Neuroprotection being it can help you maintain brain cells or nerve cells. And again, that's a maybe. That's due to some compounds that are found in the lion's mane mushroom. Doesn't necessarily mean this translates to outcomes like improved memory or improved focus. There are tons of other potential benefits that I won't really talk about today, like inflammation, gut health, immunity, and stuff like that. The reason being, I want to focus on what it's advertised to do, because it is just being produced far and wide to all kinds of people to solve these brain problems, okay? So does it actually work? Are these apparent benefits actually replicated in research? And I am not going to be looking at research in mice or petri dishes, for example. Let's look at the human studies, because there really aren't that many, okay? Now, full transparency, a little bit of anecdote to start off with. My anecdote, okay? I think my backstory, ridiculous. My background with lion's mane, or past history with lion's mane, whatever you want to say, is interesting, because this is what got me into that side of nutrition and health. So my experience of lion's mane began in second year of uni, okay? So I had recently had a dyslexia and ADHD diagnosis. I was struggling with focusing, revising, memory, recall, the list goes on, right? I then got obsessed with figuring out ways in which I could fix that, or I could work on that, whether it's nutrition, lifestyle-based, whatever. I inevitably ended up in the field of researching nootropics, okay? Now, this was back in I want to say 2018, let me double check. No, 2019, so 5 years ago. So studying sports and exercise science, doing my PT qualification as well, and obsessing about all things health and supplementation, right? Part of that journey was figuring out ways to upgrade my brain, try and get myself in a position where I could memorize and recall as much information as possible. So that inevitably kind of introduced me to lion's mane, and I started researching it, and I was like, oh, this sounds really cool. A Google search was enough to basically convince me at the time. Bought some lion's mane, started taking it, and I actually had some pretty interesting results, or at least I think that I did. Honestly, I absolutely swore by the stuff for a very, very long time. I took lion's mane from that point in 2019, probably flat out for 1.5 years to 2 years almost. I was 100% convinced that it was having this amazing effect. And look, maybe it did. And I want to say that from the get-go. Who knows? How much is placebo? How much is the actual thing? Who knows? This is why it's anecdote, and this is why it's effectively useless, kind of. This is a typical thing that people do when they start a new intervention, lifestyle, diet, supplement, whatever. It's called confirmation bias. So when I started taking lion's mane, I found that I was performing better with work, my memory was better, I was recalling things, even really specific things like dates that I typically really struggle with. I found that I was doing that a bit easier. I found I could recall information more. I found I did better in exams. The list goes on, right? I ended up going from someone that's definitely wasn't academically inclined to someone who was getting first-class degrees, consistent first-class grades, etc., right? So that for me was really new, and I loved it. And at the time, I attributed quite a lot of it to my newfound obsession with these nootropics, particularly lion's mane. This is something called confirmation bias, where someone starts a new intervention or diet or lifestyle or supplement, and they experience some changes, and they immediately attribute those changes to the one thing they've introduced. Because in the back of your mind, you want it to be that thing, okay? You want this money, this time you've invested into this new thing to be the thing that's causing the benefit. Of course you do, you're a human, which is why bias exists. Anyway, you get the idea. Confirmation bias sets in, okay? I'm convinced that lion's mane is the thing that's causing these amazing benefits for me. And again, who knows, okay? This is the thing with anecdote. I don't know if it actually was having an effect, and I don't know if it was just placebo, because placebo is very, very likely. If I was taking a nootropic that I believe to be benefiting me, that I believe to be improving my brain and my academic performance, obviously, I'm going to subconsciously start working harder, trying harder as well, putting more effort into remembering keywords and phrases, and putting more effort into recalling dates, subconsciously maybe as well. So this is a massive, massive factor. And then as I started getting more into my degree and understanding research, and particularly health and nutrition research and research articles and how that translates to real life and all of that jazz, because I started actually understanding that, evidently I got increasingly more skeptical. I saw that there was a very limited amount of human studies on lion's mane. Like at the time, I think maybe there was 1 or 2, and they were on like elderly individuals with dementia, and the studies weren't great and all of that jazz, okay? So I kind of started realizing maybe it isn't that. And since then, I haven't really bothered taking it consistently. I've taken it here and there since. Probably haven't taken it now for about a year at this point in 2024. But the thing is, my performance and memory and all of those things, I haven't noticed actually decline. So that's really important. So there's my history with lion's mane. I used to swear by it. I was convinced it was the thing that solved my ADHD and my dyslexia, right? Absolutely convinced. And maybe, who knows, with more research, we might see some kind of links like that. Who knows? But anyway, the point of this video was that I keep seeing more and more about lion's mane, and I wanted to know, has there been any research since like 2019, 2020, when I stopped taking it, that shows that it might actually be more beneficial or as beneficial as it's marketed to be? So let's dive into some studies. I've done some digging, and let's try and see if we can find any kind of scientifically proven benefit in humans. So let's have a quick look at this research, okay? And actually there have been a few studies that have come out over the years since that time frame, but I wanted to remove anything that isn't looking at the main things they're marketed towards. My goal here was looking for studies specifically on things like focus, memory, cognition, attention span. There are quite a few studies now, and loads of them aren't relevant to exactly what we're looking at, okay? So I removed them for the time being. So there was a study in 2022 that found that 4 weeks of lion's mane supplementation, which is also known as Hericium erinaceus, due to the content of hericinones and erinacines, if I'm saying that correctly, they're like the bioactive compounds of lion's mane. They're the things that might have the benefit, okay? Really important to bear that in mind. From now on, we'll refer to them as H and E, okay? So 4 weeks of lion's mane supplementation does not impact markers of metabolic flexibility or cognition. Most important thing here being in cognition, because what lots of these studies use is something called a Stroop test and mental arithmetic tests. And they found that with a sample size of 24 people taking 10 grams per day, remember that, and we'll circle back to it in just a second, but 10 grams of lion's mane per day, they found no impact on cognition in a college age cohort, okay? That's interesting. Pretty good study. It was a single-blind, placebo-controlled study, so pretty good study. 2023, the acute and chronic effects of lion's mane mushroom supplementation on cognitive function, stress, and mood in young adults, a double-blind parallel groups pilot study, okay? So a good quality study. The sample size was 41 people aged 18 to 45. The dose was 1.8 grams per day, so a smaller dose than the first study we looked at, but still a pretty large dose, more on that later. They found that a single dose, 60 minutes after taking it, resulted in a quicker Stroop task performance, and the participants also noticed a subjective reduction in stress following a month of supplementation. So that's another one to bear in mind. You then have this study from 2023, I believe, which was improvement of cognitive functions by oral intake of lion's mane mushroom, right? So this one was a placebo-controlled parallel group comparative study, so an RCT, 0.8 grams for 12 weeks. There were 31 participants that actually ended up being included in the stat analysis because 3 were excluded out of the 34. All of these participants were 50 years or old, and they were both male or female. And through their testing, which was MMSE testing, they found improved cognitive functions. So that's interesting. Now, that's kind of it, really, that I found in terms of benefits on the things that we're looking at. I couldn't find anything on memory per se. I mean, that's kind of it. You had Stroop and mental arithmetic and MMSE, okay, and that's basically it. So what does this really tell us? The verdict is it's vague. The research is vague, okay? It's very new, it's still in its infancy, of course. And yes, of course, the claims being made about it are completely extreme. This study here stated that there is no standardization. So there is no uniform standard and protocol regarding the quality and composition of these mushroom supplements, which is a big issue. We don't know what a normal dose looks like. We don't know how we should dose it. And further from that, we struggle to quality control massively. It's incredibly hard to dose it properly and measure it properly in supplements because it's very hard to know how much of the bioactive compounds that we need from lion's mane are actually found in the end supplements. And it looks like there's a lot of inconsistencies here. So it's very hard for consumers to know what you're buying is actually going to be effective. It's very hard as a consumer to know if it's going to contain those bioactive compounds at all. And there's a whole nother conversation with the different parts of the mushroom, the fruiting body and the mycelium. Lots of the time these companies put in the mycelium and the sawdust substrate, which means that it scores higher on polysaccharide count, but there is no way of knowing if those polysaccharides are from the sawdust and the inactive mycelium or the bioactive fruiting body. So now you do have companies that state that it's fruiting body only. They also state the exact amount of H and E inside the supplement as well, alongside beta-glucans as well, okay? So there are better ones to go for sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean the dose is anywhere near where it needs to be. The reason being, as we saw earlier, the dosing in these studies is way higher what you'd get in a supplement. So even the lowest dose was 0.8 grams, all the way up to 10 grams per day. Now a supplement is 250 milligrams on average, usually. Most of these companies do 200 to 400 max milligrams for their lion's mane supplement and tell you to take 1 to 2 per day, okay? 10 grams per day is 10,000 milligrams. This gives you an idea of just how high we need to dose some of these things in order to see any kind of benefit whatsoever. That's where this blurred line comes about when you look at research and a few research outcomes like improvement in like Stroop test, for example, and then all of a sudden massive improvements to cognition and attention, you know, memory, focus. All of a sudden it's this brain health amazing thing, okay? Everyone buys it and then anecdotally convinces themselves that it works. So you get the idea. We need way more research into it to know anything for sure or even get close to a conclusion. We need to establish a minimal effective dose as well. We need to guarantee the content of the bioactive compounds like H and E in these supplements are actually anywhere near where they need to be. And of course, the dose you need to take needs to align with the stuff we do in the research. So I would just say tread carefully. Like it's all a bit of a mess really when it comes to these things. This is the case for so many supplements, particularly new ones like lion's mane. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And it'd be stupid to say because of that, it doesn't work entirely, right? The correct approach would be to approach it with a degree of skepticism and just say, well, let's just see, you know, let's just kind of dip my toe in the water and see how we get on. It definitely seems to be safe. There have been some anecdotal reports of some issues, but it looked like they were taking a supplement that contained loads of other weird ingredients alongside lion's mane. So yeah. Lion's mane specifically seems to be safe. So if you want to give it a go for whatever reason and just see how you get on, then why not? Now, all I can speak of really is this small amount of research we have and my own experience. My own experience is effectively irrelevant. Anecdote is effectively pointless in these discussions. It really, really is. Even if I believe it so much myself, even if looking back at that time period, I am convinced that it was the best thing that I was doing and I was convinced it was improving my performance. There is no way of measuring that or proving that in any way. So until there's more research, we wait and see. We do not focus on anecdote. What I would say is if you are looking to buy it, I would definitely seek out a brand or a company that specifies like all the amounts of the bioactive compounds like H and E, specifies fruiting body only. You want to make sure the supplement is as pure and as well tested as possible, and that gives you the best possible chances for a better outcome, if any, okay? And I think I'll leave it there. I hope this video helps. I hope it helped you kind of paint a picture of how you should approach supplements as a whole, not just lion's mane, but really any kind of new on the scene supplement. I would say always approach with a degree of skepticism. They're very rarely going to be as good as they're marketed to be. So I hope that helped, and I will see you next week.